Hello, and welcome to 10,000 Books and More, the weekly podcast where I share my addiction to written words. I have been known to read phone books, encyclopedias, headstones, movie credits, and dictionaries in addition to what most consider to be traditional books. I am Lauren, your host, and I will be offering fair and honest reviews of books I read each week. A majority of these books are in my Kindle library, where I have over 12,000 books currently, and I will be adding more nearly every day. I'm mainly an e-reader, but I do read and review physical books as well. Among the books that I will be reviewing will be the Homegrown Books Book Club Book of the Month, of which I am a member. What makes this podcast different from a myriad of the others is that a majority of the books that I will be reviewing are by new, obscure, or unknown authors, often self-published or by small publishing companies, the classics, and pretty much anything that catches my interests, with the hopes that perhaps some of my listeners will discover something new to read. I will also be interviewing book authors, songwriters, poets, graphic novelists, and people from the small publishing world. I will be reading books across all genres and on a wide variety of topics, including fiction, nonfiction, and banned books. I will offer trigger warnings when necessary. My goal is to help connect readers with new authors and authors to new readers. This is my first podcast, so I do ask your patience regarding my sound quality, background noises, and so forth. I record through my phone, and at this time I do not have any of the fancy equipment that professional podcasters use. You may occasionally hear me cough or clear my throat, or you may even hear my cats in the background. So if you have issues with sound quality, this may not be the podcast for you. Before I begin, I would like to point out that 10,000 Books and More is an Owl and Dragonfly production in association with A Bookish Kind of Art. Both can be found on Facebook at Owl Dragonfly 2016 and A Bookish Kind of Art. I am not paid nor compensated in any way for my reviews and interviews, as this is a labor of love. Today I'll be reviewing two books. Both books come from the Book of the Month Club for Homegrown Books. Our first book today is Deliberate Malice by Lois Curran. It is January 2024's Book of the Month. This is a medical thriller or domestic thriller, published by Paperback Press November 15th of 2023. The ebook has 303 pages. This is a medical thriller with a polio outbreak and other illnesses in small-town Missouri. So there is a trigger warning for this book, that this does contain the harming of and the deaths of children. However, there is no gratuitous violence or unnecessary graphic details. The main characters, especially the protagonist, who is Lacey Bookman, are very believable, very relatable, and very sympathetic, including the protagonist. The thing with this book is they don't tell you who your protagonist is till the end. And that's okay, because you get glimpses of the protagonist and inside the protagonist's mind the whole time throughout the book. You just don't know who it is till the end. And I am not going to be the one to spoil it for you and tell you who it is. Main character, Lacey Bookman, is the head of the nursing department for the health department in Lester County, Missouri. She is a mother, a wife, a good friend, and a pretty good boss who is going through an absolute crisis with a polio outbreak. There was not a lot of room in the story for significant character growth. There was a bit for the protagonist and a side character, her husband. However, this wasn't the type of story that needed character growth for the story to be intriguing or for the story to move on. We see a strong female protagonist in Lacey. She is not the kind that runs around kicking butt and shooting everybody or thinking she can do everything completely on her own and succeeding. This is a woman who relies on her inner strengths and the strength of the love of her friends and family and her colleagues to get through this situation. The side characters also add to the story. There was no extraneous characters, no gratuitous characters. Everyone that was in the book actually had a rounded personality. Nobody fell flat. Nobody was stereotypical. The other thing I liked was that no one looked in a mirror and described themselves. I find that to be rather annoying when I read books that they do that, because that is like the number one flag of an amateur writer. The protagonist also had some wonderful traits. She was very honest, hardworking, empathic, intelligent, and very dedicated. She also had realistic flaws, internalizing a lot of her internal fears, jumping to conclusions, and having a voracious sweet tooth. Her combined traits did make her feel very real and like someone you wanted to be friends with, and I loved the fact that she would own her mistakes rather than hide from them or deny them. What I liked about this book is, well, it's very well written. It offers medical information in layman's terms, so there's no overdoing the unnecessary medical jargon. This story kept me on the edge of my seat with a myriad of emotions, and it kept me guessing until the very end. As for the pacing, I felt the pacing was perfect. The tension started building slowly at first and then begins to climb higher and higher and higher until you're just ready to fall off the edge of your seat. I was put through an emotional roller coaster with the tension and stress, feeling what each character felt as they struggled to handle this most unusual situation. At times I was very sad, angry, laughing, then crying. This is definitely a story that will tug at the heartstrings. I did have to put the book down a few times and walk away just because of the tension, but mainly it was because of what some of the parents were going through and how well she described these experiences, the emotional experiences. As for descriptions, the descriptions were great. There was enough information to form a good picture in your head of the people and the surroundings without overdoing them. The author doesn't waste paragraphs telling you how a doorknob was turned. There's just the right amount of telling as well as showing. As for the dialogue felt very natural and very believable, and it flowed well. There was nothing stilted. There was nothing formulaic. It was almost like you were eavesdropping on the people in the book while they were having a conversation and learning a lot from what they had to say. My overall impression is I gave this book 5 stars because I couldn't find anything about it to dislike. The writing is intelligent, there was no editing issues, and everything felt well researched. I purchased this ebook from Amazon for $2.99. It is also available in paperback for $12.99 on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It is also available on Audible for $7.47. My second book for this week is Moonchild Rising by R.H. Burkett. It was the book of the year for 2023 for Homegrown Books. Moonchild Rising is published by Solander Press, March 18th of 2023. It falls under the occult horror, occult fiction, and coming of age. It has 259 ebook pages. So this is a paranormal historic novel, Good versus Evil. 15-year-old Carol Ann lives in Louisiana during the 1950s with her mother. Her mother tangles with Jackie Blue, who is a demon-possessed bad boy, and steals from him. Fleeing to the swamps, Carol Ann and her mother hide from Jackie Blue. Carol Ann's mother meets with Mama Queen in the swamps. And when her mother is killed by Jackie Blue, Carol Ann finds refuge with Mama Queen and her children. So, warning, this book deals with paranormal, murder, and voodoo. However, it is respectfully and tastefully done. The main character, Carol Ann, is very believable, relatable, and very sympathetic. She grows from the age 15 to the age 16, starting out as a frightened and bitter child, and growing into a very powerful young woman. And Carol Ann also evolves into a strong female protagonist with the guidance of Mama Queen and Mama Queen's family. The side characters definitely add to the story. Again, there are no extra gratuitous side characters. I felt like each of the side characters had a story of their own to tell, particularly Mama Queen and Mimosa, her youngest daughter. But in truth, all of them, her son, her other daughter, the detective, even the bad guys, all have a story to tell that would be very, very interesting to read. All the characters are fully fleshed out, and each one had very different personalities. Even the cat was a wonderful addition to the story, and I felt the house itself was a character in this book. Mama Queen's house just feels like a living, breathing entity with a duty to protect the family. And as for the antagonist, he was very frightening, very bad. A handsome man who's demon-possessed and doesn't believe in the consequences of his actions. What I liked is the characters. I absolutely loved the characters in the story, how they reminded me of people I know. I enjoyed the interactions between Carol Ann and Mama Queen and her children. There's a bit of magic, mystery, and coming of age all rolled into one. There are no gratuitous scenes, nor any characters that don't belong in the story. What I didn't like about this story was Jackie Blue. Jackie Blue is an absolutely detestable character. He is the villain. He is too much like somebody I particularly know. However, he's supposed to be that way, and we're supposed to not like Mr. Jackie Blue. So it's okay that we didn't like him. He is portrayed as a very terrible, cruel person long before he's demon-possessed, and he really, really, really comes into his own with the villainy. The pacing in this story is very good. The story moves along fairly quickly, and I read the entire story in one sitting. This book also tugs on the emotional strings. You feel a lot of empathy for Carol Ann, losing her mother, having to adjust to life in a new home with new rules, and fearing for her life. Mimosa brought out feelings of playful innocence mixed with the wisdom of a grandmother. The scenes with her are usually fun to read. There are lighthearted moments mingled in with some very sad and some very frightful moments. As for the descriptions are very informative without overtaking the story. The reader is given enough information in the right doses, in the right places, to keep track of the story, the surroundings, the setting, and the people. The dialogue is also wonderful. I love how the author portrays Carol Ann's language through dialogue. We learn that she, just from hearing her speak or reading her speak, we discover that she has a poor education without ever having to be told. And we learn a lot about Mama Queen with her dialogue, and sometimes from her silences as well. The dialogue flowed. It did not stagnate or jolt the reader out of the story, but instead it was sort of like a nice bit of seasoning. My overall impression of this book, I gave it 5 stars because I was so drawn in by all of the characters, the main characters and the secondary. The setting, the plot, the dialogue, and the pacing are all spot on, and I look forward to reading more books by Miss R.H. Burkett. I did happen to borrow this ebook from the Amazon through Kindle Unlimited. It is for sale at Amazon as an ebook for $3.99 or for $10.99 in paperback, and it's also available at Barnes & Noble for $10.99 as a paperback. So that concludes my reviews of the books. I'd like to let you know that Tuesday, the 9th of January, I will be uploading my interview with Miss R.H. Burkett, where we discuss Moonchild Rising in more detail. On Tuesday, the 16th, I will upload my interview with author Lois Curran from Deliberate Malice, and I will be reviewing 2 more ebooks on Tuesday, January 23rd. So again, this is Lauren with 10,000 Books and More, and until next time, peace and be safe.